Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to you in a very humbling time. Before we even get into what this show is going to say, we at Breaking Out of the Ring want to say that we stand with everyone who has been had to deal with an injustice for just paying the color of their skin. It is not right. It is not good. It is not acceptable. We hope that these protests that are going on with the straw that broke the camel's back in the murder of George Floyd, I will say that's the one thing I'm kind of annoyed with in the media is they're all talking about this is all over the murder of George Floyd, when in all honesty, that's just the straw that broke the camel's back to cause all of the things that are going on. We hope everyone goes out and continues to peacefully protest, to do it in the right way. Please stop destroying your own neighborhoods, the people that support your communities, the people that are going to have a really hard time coming back that have supported you. But we get it. We understand. But please just try to go out and be as peaceful as possible when dealing with, again, an incredible injustice to an entire community. That's it. That's all we're going to say about this. What we are going to do today is talk about a top 10. This is a wrestling show that has never strayed away from the weekly events in wrestling until today. Today, we are going to talk about the top 10 in-ring workers and the top 10 mic workers. Two separate entities, because someone can be amazing on the microphone and suck in the ring. And someone can be amazing in the ring and be blah on the microphone. We're going to get into our top 10 in each category this week as we
break the ring down.
Woo! You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. You just made the list.
This right here is a family.
Hey, this is professional wrestler and professional podcaster Colt Boom Boom Cabana.
My name is Killer Cross.
This is The Smoke Show, Scarlett Bordeaux.
What's up, guys? The F Machine, Brian Cage.
This is Ryan from Pro Wrestling Tees.
Sadly, you are not listening to The Art of Wrestling, but you made a decent choice because you're listening.
You are now listening to...
When you're listening...
And you're listening to...
You listen to Breaking Down the Ring.
Breaking Down the Ring.
Breaking Down the Ring.
Breaking Down the Ring.
Breaking Down the Ring. Break it down.
Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the most inappropriate pro wrestling show in the motherfucking world. You're listening to Breaking Down the Ring. We are your ring crew who are going to have real much fun doing this.
I'm Smitty. Plain White Z.
I'm Joe.
Nick.
Fucking knew it was coming. Nick, go
and just fucking Nick.
Yo.
Nick, why are you stealing my gimmick?
I don't know. It just felt right.
Want to be a tag team?
Joe, do you want to introduce yourself, sir?
I'm Joe. The whole effing Joe.
And me, the almighty one, Mikey himself. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we stated in the intro, we're doing something completely different today. We are talking about our top 10 in wrestling. There's a top 10 in-ring workers and top 10 mic workers. This is not something that we're not going into top 10 wrestlers overall. We're not going into anything like that. We are just talking about specifically the work rate of a person in the ring and the work rate of the person on the microphone. It's a different type of list. And the reason we're doing it like this is because, look, man, a lot of people talk about their top 10 wrestlers. And then every now and then someone will talk about the top 10 people that have used the stick and being the microphone. And then, of course, every now and then you'll hear about the in-ring workers. But I haven't seen one of these lists yet in 2020, and we have never done this. We have voiced our opinions on certain things, usually within a top 3, a top 4, a Mount Rushmore, so on and so forth. But we've never really gotten into something like this. And let me be very honest, that some of these lists are very diverse. The in-ring workers are diverse. Most of us have 2 or 3. One of us, well, okay, 2 of us have 3 different people that have never been on, that aren't on anyone else's lists. 2 of us have 2 people that aren't on anyone else's list. And one of us has 1 person that's not on anyone else's list, which is a complete change to when you get to the mic workers, where 2 of us have 2 people that aren't on anyone's list. 1 person has 1 person that's not on anyone's list. And 2 of us have, our top 10 is everyone that's been on everyone else's list. So it's pretty easy to say that when you get into the mic work of things, things basically are around the same area. Most people know who their top 10 is. We're actually going to go in order of how I've put it on the list, which is just the way I refer to everybody in alphabetical order. So we're going to start off with the in-ring work first. We'll go to in-ring work, and then we'll move to our top 10 mic workers. So for our in-ring workers, Joe, you're actually first for this. Give me 3 of the people that aren't in your top 10, but are obviously should be deservedly honorable mentions.
Okay, Chris Benoit, for obvious reasons, could have probably made the top 10, but we know why he shouldn't be there.
No, seriously, why? Why shouldn't he be there? I'll be the first to say, and it's just the question, because obviously Z wants to chime in right now too. His actions are shit. The things that he did at the end of his life. I don't think that changes how good he was in the ring. And I'll be very honest, I think he's on everyone else's top 10 besides yours.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the Hall of Fame. This is just a list of your favorite wrestlers in the ring. So if Benoit was one of your favorite wrestlers, put him on your fucking list.
Yeah, and at the same time, though, if your opinion is he doesn't deserve to be there, then because of the stuff, then I also understand the opinion.
Well, there's a couple other guys that I would have that are honorable mentions that I would probably put in before Benoit anyway, even if he didn't commit that. For example, Ricky Steamboat, maybe even Dynamite Kid. Benoit emulated him, but Dynamite was the original of that style, and no one did it better than Dynamite, even Benoit. So, I mean, those are probably 2 guys that I would put in before Benoit that aren't on my list as well. So I still stand by my choice.
Okay. So are those your 3 then? Dynamite Kid, Ricky Steamboat, and Benoit? All right.
Yeah.
Nick, you're next.
All right.
Your honorable mentions.
Yep. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, and I'll probably get shit for this one, but Goldberg.
Yeah. Are your honorable mentions? Are your honorable mentions? How the fuck are the first 2 not on your list, period? And secondly, why is Goldberg even... No. Goldberg shouldn't even be in your top 100, your top 200, maybe top 500.
So, Nick, explain. Your 3 are who again? I'm sorry, because the minute the Goldberg was said, I knew something was about to pop off. I immediately forgot your first 2.
Rey Mysterio.
Also, I knew it was Nick. Ask Mikey. I knew it was Nick.
Z. All right, so Rey Mysterio,
Eddie Guerrero.
Okay.
And
Goldberg. All right, so let's talk about the first 2. All right, because number 3 is super polarized. Why didn't they make the top 10 Guerrero and Mysterio? I'll be honest, one of them is on my top 10, one of them is not.
I went back and forth with Eddie Guerrero being in the top 10. It was probably honestly just my mood. Because if you were to ask me this in 6 months from now, depending on if I've watched a couple of his matches over somebody else,
he might have ended up in the top 10. It was really hard. It really was. I don't really have a rhyme or reason for him being out. At first he was, and then I had like 15 or 16 guys that I was just shuffling through, and he didn't end up in there.
I'll be very honest, man. My list, because we were supposed to do this show like 3 weeks ago, and I had my top 10s, and things moved in and out of top 10 as well. So I completely understand that. Now, I think the question that everyone who is watching this, obviously everyone who's on the show, is wondering, why Goldberg for an honorable mention?
He never had a chance to make the top 10. Let me be clear on that. But I think for me, the fact that, he went as long as he did, being booked as this undefeated monster, just destroying people, for me, I know that doesn't necessarily translate to his in-ring ability, but I think it kind of speaks to it to a point because, I know it's predetermined and whatever, but I just think that's something that we still haven't really seen since then. So I just thought it was, it was good to throw him in the mix, in the conversation. Like I said, that's why he didn't make my top 10, because I don't think he's a great worker at all. But I think that what he did in that time period, in that era, is something to be said.
Okay. Z, your rebuttal, just because I really know you want to say something.
I did, but then again, this is a list of our opinions. It's not my fault that Nick has shitty opinions. So, with that said, if Goldberg is on your list, cool. But now I don't care what the rest of your list is.
It's a pretty good list. It's a pretty good list. All right. So my honorable mentions. I again, when I said we were supposed to do this 3 weeks ago, and we weren't able to get into it, just for the simple fact that things happen, extenuating circumstances. So my list has switched in and out. There was a couple of guys who I originally had in my top 10 that are now out. One of those is going to be a very polarizing one, Bret Hart. Bret Hart was in the top 10, but he has slowly moved out because there was names I forgot about and other things that I wasn't thinking about. Bret Hart is really good, but in my honest opinion, he's not the best of the Hart brothers, the Hart family that was in there for in-ring. So that's why he fell out of the top 10 for me. Another one, AJ Styles. I think AJ Styles currently is one of the greatest in-ring performers right now, currently, like that's in the ring, so like I'm really excited to see this Daniel Bryan AJ Styles match, because they've always put on really good shows, and I think that this could be really good, especially because the dynamics finally flipped. AJ's the heel and Daniel Bryan's the face for these. But a guy who was 10 that is now 11 is Macho Man Randy Savage. I think he's very underrated for his in-ring work. I think two of the best WrestleMania matches, if you're going for a top 10 WrestleMania matches for in-ring work, he's in two of them. But it's against two people that I have in my top 10 in both of those matches that also have had some of the best matches together. So while Randy Savage is good in the ring, I think he's made a lot better by the people above him, which again is a partial reason why he fell down. So that's why those are my honorable mentions: Macho Man Randy Savage, Bret Hart, and AJ Styles. Smitty, give me your three honorable mentions.
So one of my three honorable mentions were Owen Hart, Kurt Hennig, and Ric Flair.
Wow. Okay. So let's start off with the one that is really surprising to hear. He's an honorable mention and not in your top 10. Arguably considered one of the greatest of all time, Ric Flair. Why is he not in your top 10 and just in your honorable mentions?
I watched a lot of Ric Flair footage, and I think it's just more so the Ric Flair I grew up watching is not Ric Flair in his prime, and that just kind of affected where I placed him in my list to a certain degree.
Okay, so then let me ask you with your top 10, and I'm not spoiling anything. What about, is it because like in their prime is not how you're voting this? You're voting this for an entire career. For your top 10.
Like this, we say it's personal opinionated list, and some of it's like this stuff that I watched and stuff that stood out to me. And
no, I understand that, but that's what I'm saying. Is you're saying you're not including Ric Flair because of a lot of the stuff that you watched is not how good he was in his prime, so he fell out of a top 10 for you. So that means so what you're voting on basically for these people is their overall body of work in their career.
Yes, for the most part.
Right. Now Owen Hart, why is he an honorable mention for you?
Honestly, I think Owen Hart got a short end of stick because he was the first person I put on my honorable mentions. I put him on honorable mention because like his career was kind of cut short via his tragic death. So I feel like Owen never really reached his full potential.
I kind of agree.
And who?
I kind of agree with Smitty on that one because I have Owen on my list, but had he had a chance to have more matches, especially with the guys that were coming in after he died, he would have made it higher on my list. That's all I wanted to say.
No, I'm not even going to argue that at all. And Smitty, who was the third one now? I apologize.
Kurt Hennig.
Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect. Why is he an honorable mention for you?
So Kurt Hennig was just one of those guys that he was really impressive in the ring, but I feel like he just never got a chance anywhere outside of his WCW run to actually run with the ball anywhere else. Well, he won WCW and made him a world champion. He never got a chance to really run with the ball. Just his position everywhere he went, like great in-ring work, but never really was put in a position to prove why he was one of the best.
All right, understandable. All right, now Z, finally for you, who are your three that you put in your honorable mentions?
Let me start by saying this list was super hard because we didn't classify in-ring work as far as technician, high flyer, submission stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're talking everybody and everything. So I cut my list quite short. And now I'm looking at my list again, going, I've got to adjust some things. So I understand. Next time we do this, Mikey, maybe top 25. Definitely help me out.
That's the whole purpose of top 10. Make it difficult.
My three honorable mentions are Dynamite Kid, AJ Styles, and Dean Malenko.
All right. So one of yours has not been talked about. Dean Malenko. Why do you give Dean Malenko an honorable mention?
I feel that Dean Malenko is one of the best technicians to ever wrestle, but yet he never gets talked about because he was a WCW guy before he was a WWE guy, and he didn't get the same respect in WWE that he did in WCW. WCW, who's the man. Like he didn't have much personality, so he wouldn't be on my mic list by any means. But as far as in ring ability, I mean, he could do any style, and he proved that when he was in the cruiserweight division going against like Eddie and Ray and stuff like that. But he could also, break people down into his own style, and he was a submission specialist himself. And I don't know, I just really like Dean Malenko, so he's my honorable mention.
And that's understandable. I mean, hell, one of the best promos that Chris Jericho has ever had, or one of his most notable ones, is the 1,001 holds. Because everyone's saying Dean Malenko is the man of 1,000 holds, and then Chris Jericho goes, "I have 1,001," and then his list is basically armbar, snap suplex, armbar. Just hilarious shit. So in WCW, I agree with you. WCW, Dean Malenko was at least in that division. He wasn't thrown to the top of the rankings, but he wasn't the afterthought that he was in the Radicals. So who were your other two now? You had
Dynamite Kid and AJ Styles.
So Joe also mentioned Dynamite Kid. So why for you is he an honorable mention?
Because he invented like the high flying style that we call the cruiserweights now, but he was doing it way before everybody else. He was really, really good at his craft. Like, just watching him, the stuff he would do in the ring at that time period was just all innovative and all brand new and fresh. I mean, nowadays he would kind of fit right in, but back then the stuff he was doing in the ring was unheard of.
Yeah, like the original Tiger Mask was a consideration for one of my honorable mentions because the things that him and Dynamite were doing, I mean, damn near 40 years ago now, I mean, those matches stand up today. Like, they were doing things back then that were just unheard of at the time. And like I said, you could put that match on a card today and it would fit right in. You know, a New Japan Ring of Honor type card, they'd be right in there with those guys.
And Z, you and I are the only two to have AJ Styles listed as an honorable mention and not in our top 10. I explained my reasons why. What about for you, brother?
To be honest, I haven't followed AJ Styles like some people in this group. But from what I've seen, he is really, really good, like really good. But there are just people that came before him that kind of had that style before he did. You know, the one is Shawn Michaels, and obviously Shawn is on my fucking list. But AJ, I mean, AJ's still top 25 to ever do it, and that's saying something. I mean, not saying he's 25 or 11, but I mean, I'd have to reconfigure some things. And again, just my opinion. Everyone's list is going to be different. But AJ just, I mean, he just barely missed it. I was struggling. My number 10, I'll give it away, was Eddie Guerrero, and I struggled with AJ Styles or Eddie Guerrero. You know, the flip flop, and finally. I just picked one. It's hard, man. You know, after the first three, it's like, well, yeah, these guys could basically go anywhere.
Right.
And again, talk about technician, high flyer, shit like that. But, yeah.
So that transitions right into we're going to talk about everyone's bottom three. We'll start off with yours, Z's. Number 10, you have Eddie Guerrero. Number 9, you have William Regal. And at number 8, you have Owen Hart. Give me the reasoning behind why you have those as your bottom 3.
Well, we'll start with...
Side note, apologize. When I said, I remember I was talking about in the beginning that there is somebody on everybody's list that is not on anyone else's list. Your number 9, William Regal, is one that is particular only to your list. So talk about your bottom 3 and why you feel William Regal above anyone else deserves to be in the top 10.
Okay, again, so when I did my list, I tried to keep it to who was the best in their particular genre of in-ring work. You know, again, technicians, high flyers. So William Regal had like this British strong style. He had the European style, and he was really good, like really good. Like William Regal should be on everyone's top 10 list because William Regal was really good in the ring. And you also got to configure that for like at least 15 years of that career, he doesn't remember what he was doing in the ring. He was so fucked up, and he was still that fucking good. So he perfected the European style. He was given shitty gimmicks. So like again, this isn't like a star power thing in my book. I strictly basing it on in-ring abilities. And William Regal's one of the best to ever do it. And I almost guarantee there's at least one person sitting there going, oh shit, I should have put William Regal on my list, but I didn't even think about it. Because when Joe said Dynamite Kid, I was like, fuck.
I was definitely thinking about Regal throughout all this, at least as he could have been. I wish we could do more honorable mentions because he would have been one.
Right.
He's definitely he's unorthodox. He's not the most athletic guy, but just the way he moves in the ring and his chain wrestling and his move set and his grittiness, he's excellent. And he's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
So I picked Eddie because he's adaptable, like really adaptable. He could wrestle any style. He would do anything in the ring. Didn't matter size, anything like that. So Eddie was number 10 because I really enjoy all of Eddie Guerrero's matches. There wasn't a single Eddie Guerrero match that I thought was like, damn, that's the drizzling shit. And as far as Owen Hart, Owen Hart, in my opinion, now later on in my list, I have Bret Hart, but I think Owen had the tragic accident not happened, and a year later he got to wrestle everybody that was coming into the company or coming up in the company. I think he would have been the best of the Hart brothers. He had more charisma. His in-ring ability was equal to Brett's. Brett normally gets the nod over Owen like he did on my list just because of the star power factor at the time. But I don't know what Owen could have been. So Owen is definitely on my list, and I definitely think he was better than William Regal and Eddie Guerrero. So he's number 8.
All right. Smitty, your bottom 3 for your top 10. Number 10, Dean Malenko. Number 9, Macho Man Randy Savage. And number 8, AJ Styles. Dean Malenko is the one that is on your top 10 that is not on anyone else's top 10. He is your number 10. There's been conversation as to why he was honorably mentioned. Why do you feel he deserved to be in the top 10? And also talk about AJ Styles and Macho Man Randy Savage being at 8 and 9.
So Malenko made my 10 spot because, like Z said, like he's one of the most underrated technicians probably to ever enter the game. Also, he was one of those guys that I remember watching as a kid. I should remember watching as a kid, either through early ECW or the cruiserweights. And I do feel like he got a bad rap and a bad position inside of WWE, the World Wrestling Federation. So he has some of the most memorable matches I've seen with Eddie Guerrero and ECW. His feuds with guys like Jericho and Rey Mysterio and Guerrero, even in WCW. Like he just had a lot of memorable matches and feuds, and it was also through mostly ring work.
Okay. And then AJ Styles at 8 and Macho Man Randy Savage at 9. Why do you have those guys there?
So I have Macho Man at 9 because Macho Man to me was one of the guys that I just stood out from like when I watched matches from the 80s and stuff like that. And even his WCW run, he still had a little gas in the tank. And that's when Vince felt like he had nothing left to give to WWF. And he's also just had some of the most, like you said, two most memorable WrestleMania matches of all time. And he was probably he always kind of was in the shadow of Hogan throughout the 80s, and Flair as well. So anyway, he was by far the better ring guy out of those 3 in my mind.
Okay, and then AJ Styles, number 8.
AJ Styles is probably one of the best modern in-ring guys. Next to one of my other honorable mentions, but you said let's pick 3. So and I watched AJ come up from when he first started with Ring of Honor and his the phenomenal, no pun intended, runs he had in Impact, TNA Impact, and the reinvention he did with himself in New Japan. And his in-ring work is never slowed down. Is never really hindered thus far.
All right. Nick, you're next. Your bottom 3. You have Chris Jericho at number 10, AJ Styles at number 9, and I'm sorry, I totally did not see this one. This is one that you have that is on no one else's list. At number 8, it is The Rock. So start off with why you feel The Rock is in the top 10 of in-ring workers. And then, of course, I want to hear about why you have AJ Styles at 9 and Chris Jericho at 10.
Hold on. What? Hold on.
Huh.
All right, I was off doing stuff, but I heard that somebody was on somebody's list, and I had to come back and make a point.
Well, let him talk, and then you can make the point. Nick, go ahead.
You said to start with The Rock. So The Rock, just again, this is for me. While I think he made my top 10, and he made the lower part of the top 10 because while he wasn't as good as my other guys on the list, I think that for the matches that he had, not only with Austin, with Mick Foley, the stamina that he showed, the type of the way he sold a lot of these moves, I think for me, The Rock, when he sold the stunner, it's to me one of the greatest things that I could watch that over and over again. You know, I think that his charisma in the ring to captivate the audience and the way it did is bigger than a lot of the other guys had, because I think not only do you can perform in the ring all day, but if you're not engaging the audience and having them behind you when you're performing, then to me, you know, it just doesn't really work. So the way that he engaged the audience and got everybody to side with him in his ability, it's almost, you know, it's why he made my top 10.
Okay, I guess are you referring to his mic work, like his promos, or in the match when he's like yelling at the audience and stuff like that?
In the match itself.
Okay, all right. And then of course you have AJ Styles at number 9 and Chris Jericho at number 10. Explain those two as well.
Yeah, AJ Styles right now, one of the best in the world. You know, he can really do anything from striking to submission to high flying moves to, you know, power moves. You know, there's oftentimes when he really surprises me with how strong he really is. And then Chris Jericho, I mean, the dude's been doing this as long, if not longer, than I've been watching wrestling on and off. And the fact that he can still go the way he does at his age is just a testament to how good he really is in the ring. He makes other guys look good. And he's just always been in the top 10 for me.
All right, Z, what was your rebuttal point?
I retract it because I just realized that Nick hasn't been watching wrestling as long as some of us, so his top 10 is going to be slightly newer generation than and plus one of the things he said about The Rock, again, we're doing in-ring, what does it for you, and what does it for him is Rock showmanship in the ring, so I can't really tell him he's wrong. So
right, especially because you said it yourself. Your list was like, we weren't talking specifically technicians. We're not talking specifically high flyers. It can, you know, and yeah, you know, it was funny when Nick sent me his in-ring workers. The first thing he said after he sent it was, "Don't shit on me for my list," and I was like,
"Don't worry, Z will."
Hey, yo, Z, out of all those categories you brought up, the showman was something you never brought up. That's another category. Like, that's what does it for Nick.
Right, that's what I mean. Like, this is very the in-ring work one was harder than the mic one. The mic one, I made a list of 100 people off the top of my head and was like, okay, Bass. But this one, it's like, well, you know, he's not, you know, very fluid in the ring, but he's a really good technician, so he should be on the list. Or for Nick, it's The Rock. The Rock had the sloppiest fucking sharpshooter and a DDT that, you know, you wanted to gag at as far as fluid in moves, but the way he interacted with the crowd during the match sold Nick on it. So that's Nick's, you know, it's just, you can go many different ways with this. So let's continue.
I agree. Up next is me, and 2 of my bottom 3 are not on anyone else's list. I have Owen Hart at number 8. At number 9, I have Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. And at number 10, I have Daniel Bryan. I'll start with Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is definitely someone that, as far as in-ring work, made me, because he was so good in the ring in WWE, is one of those people that made me go and look at his past catalog. And when he was the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, using his actual name in indie promotions, in Ring of Honor, when he was wrestling people all across the board, that's what made me a fan of Daniel Bryan. I have long stated that I don't care how good you are in the indies. I don't care how good you are in New Japan, Ring of Honor, any other wrestling promotion that puts you in a top upper echelon of workers. I don't think you're an amazing worker if you can't work the WWE style. Because I'll be very honest, the WWE style is very formulaic. They wanted a certain way to go off to their TV audience to mesh with how everything else is working. I'm not talking NXT. I'm talking WWE. You know, it's the reason why I think Shinsuke Nakamura in New Japan was spectacular in the ring. But he has been shit in WWE. He was great in NXT, but he was shit, because they're not giving him the 20-minute storytelling time. So that's why he's not one of the people that I even had in my honorable mentions. Daniel Bryan, though, has formatted his style, which was obviously different in the indies, to work in WWE and be considered one of the best for sure in ring style in WWE. So that's why I think that he hits my top 10, because he's not only great outside of WWE, but he is also making people look a whole fuck lot better in WWE. Even currently now, the stuff that he's doing with Drew Gulak, he is the reason Drew Gulak is kind of on the map in WWE, and more than likely why Drew Gulak got that contract extension, that money bump that he was trying to get when he let his contract go away last week. Because now he's back in WWE, again next to Daniel Bryan's side, more than likely with the more money, at least more money than what they were originally offering than what he wanted. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, I have at number 9. Again, another guy, it has been stated that he was given the run in WCW, wasn't really given the run in WWE, but WWF. But at the same time, the run he was given in WWF was with a championship that is considered the workhorse title, the Intercontinental Championship. Kurt Hennig is just, for my money, definitely up there for in-ring workers. He should have had a WWF championship run, but unfortunately, when we were talking about how Smitty was talking about how Macho Man Randy Savage was like, Hogan was kind of just there, he could not surpass him. Same thing with Kurt Hennig. He just could not surpass a couple guys that were above him to get that run. Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, people like that. But it did not discount what he was doing in the ring, because what he was doing in the ring was spectacular to watch. And number 8, the only Hart to be in my top 10, Owen Hart. Obviously this is a back and forth thing. Like Z was saying, Bret Hart had the star power. That's why he kind of edges Owen sometimes. But Owen was still in WWF when Bret went to WCW after the Montreal Screwjob. And the reason that they had such a problem with Owen is because right then, WWF didn't know what to do with people that were that good in the ring, but they didn't know how to get them over outside of the in-ring work. If Owen was the first Hart, like let's say, because he was the youngest kid of the entire Hart family, right? Of Stu. So if Owen had been born earlier, like if he was Bret, Owen would have went into WWF and did way better than Bret Hart did, in my opinion, because he was more charismatic, right? But obviously towards the end, what they're trying to focus on is not just his in-ring work, because the dude was flipping everywhere. He was able to put on the technical stuff. Even Chris Jericho said in the Dark Side of the Ring, it was like he was doing things that he was like, wow, I just can't wait to hopefully work with him one day. And it is not stated just because of this Dark Side of the Ring that is recently. Owen Hart has always been, at least to me, one of the top performers in ring in professional wrestling. Anybody want to say anything about that? Not just Owen, just my bottom three. Z, you look like you're pointing around.
I was going to put Daniel Bryan on my list, and then I was going to put Daniel Bryan in my honorable mention. But the entire time, every time I thought of Daniel Bryan, I thought of Walt standing right behind me going, yeah, he's got no fucking talent.
Walt trolls the shit out of Daniel
Bryan.
Okay.
I was going to say that was a good pick because, like I said, I thought about him for both of mine. He definitely deserves to be on, a top list. And yeah, good pick.
Thanks, man. Smitty, you're about to say something.
I figured Daniel Bryan was going to be one of those dead horse picks. That's why I kind of put him on the cutting floor.
So are you saying that because you thought no one else was going to pick him, you didn't pick him?
I thought everybody was going to pick him, and I just wanted to have a little variety.
See, man, that's the whole point of these top 10. These point top 10 is like your top 10, no matter what. I have I have 3 people on my list that aren't on anyone else's list.
Brian was also, he's one of the, when you had me sitting on everything, I put Brian in my honorable mentions because I gave you like a whole list of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone gave me a whole list of stuff. All right, Joe, your bottom 3. Number 10, Chris Jericho. Number 9, Owen Hart. And number 8, which is surprising, even more surprising than Smitty putting him in honorable mentions, Ric Flair. Again, arguably one of the greatest of all time. Why do you have him at number 8? And also talk about number 9, Owen Hart, and number 10, Chris Jericho.
When you mean why do I have Ric Flair at number 8 and not higher or not lower?
Yes, higher. Because, again, he's arguably considered one of the greatest of all time.
He is as a 5-tool player, as the overall package. I just feel like in-ring ability, not that he's not great, because I still have him in my top 10. He's fucking awesome. He's Ric Flair. He's one of the greatest. But I just feel like there's some other guys that in-ring, rope to rope, are better than him. Not very many guys, because he's still in my top 10, but,
right.
Like you said at the beginning of the show, if we're talking like overall, like great wrestlers of all time, Ric Flair would be much higher. Then going back to Chris Jericho at number 10, it's just, from the time he entered the scene until right now, he's having just 4 or 5-star matches with everybody. I mean, he's wrestled everybody across the gamut, he's wrestled Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and he's wrestling guys in New Japan like, Okada, Naito, Kenny Omega, Tanahashi, and he's still just having incredible matches, even pushing 50 years old. And then Owen Hart, this is difficult because he could be higher. He probably is a better in-ring worker than Bret, even though I have Bret higher on my list. And it's not a star power thing with me, with Bret being higher on my list than Owen. It's just a body of work thing. Had Owen had the chance to work the late 90s, early 2000s, and that, later into the Attitude Era, into the Ruthless Aggression Era, and then even more modern, like maybe work with Shawn on Shawn's second run and some of the other guys coming in. I mean, who knows, man? Owen could have been number 1. It's just he got cut short right in the prime of his career, and there's just so many matches that he didn't get a chance to have that I'm sure would have put him higher on everyone's list.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody have any comments regarding his list? his bottom three. I thought Smitty wanted to say something earlier, then he muted himself.
We talked about the whole Jericho thing. So I can get on that because he comes up on my list as well, a little bit higher than Joe's.
All right. Joe, we're going snake draft order, so you're going to talk about your next three as well. Number 5, 6, and 7. Number 7 is someone that is not on anybody else's list. He's specific to yours, and that is Kenny Omega. At number 6, you have Kurt Angle, and number 5, Bret Hart. So let's start with Kenny Omega because obviously he's not on anyone else's list, and then go into Bret Hart as to why he's above Owen. Like you said, there was a flip-flop, but why you eventually did take Bret above him. And Kurt Angle is the first mention of Kurt Angle for anybody's list, and he's going to be mentioned again, obviously, and definitely in other people's – these three for other people as well. So go ahead and talk.
When I'm thinking about Kenny Omega, I'm not so much thinking about the AEW Kenny Omega. I'm thinking about the cleaner New Japan Kenny Omega and some of the series of matches he had with Okada. He's had great matches with pretty much everybody on that roster, and a lot of people, including people that are known to be a lot smarter in this business than I am, compare Kenny's matches, his series of matches with Okada. They compare them to the series of matches that Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair had in the late 80s, early 90s, which are considered to be some of the best series of matches ever. And I would put both those two on those platforms, both those two series of matches. And Kenny, he's just so good in ring, and I mean, Kenny's still young. He's building his resume still. You know, he's going to add to that, and he's going to make more of a legacy for himself. And I think by the time it's all said and done, he is going to be on everybody's list, and he is going to be maybe even higher on everybody's list. Let's see. Kurt Angle. Man, I struggle with him too. I could have put him higher. I mean, I love Kurt Angle. He's just, when he was in his prime, I mean, I don't think there was anybody having better matches on a consistent match-to-match, week-to-week basis than him. And just him coming in from, a shoot fight style, a real wrestling, amateur wrestling background, and to be able to adapt and transition to the pro style, not only as quickly as he did it, but as well as he did it, is just amazing to me. I find it amazing now, and when I was watching it happen in real time, I found it amazing, Yeah. And, Bret, he deserves to be on a top 10 list. Could he be flip-flop with Owen? Of course. Owen's probably better in the ring than Bret, but the fact of the matter is Bret he's got a resume that speaks for itself. So many marquee matches, so many famous matches, so many of, people's best matches being against him. And Stone Cold Steve Austin will tell you his best match is against Bret Hart. I'm sure a lot of other guys would say that too. He's just got a resume that speaks for itself, and it's hard not to put him on there.
All right. Next is me with my three. I have, for what no one else has on their list, for me is Tetsuya Naito at number 7, Shawn Michaels at number 6, and at number 5, I have Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
I like all those, man.
Yeah, Naito.
Nice call on the Naito.
Thank you. That's exactly what I'm about to talk about right now. Naito is, a lot of people have been talking, including just now on this list, with Chris Jericho and Okada, how they had some of the best matches, and how Okada and Kenny Omega had some amazing matches as well. I've always said, one of my things about the reason that I complain about some AEW stuff is when things go outside of the ring or things that are extended from what a normal wrestling match's rules are it takes me away out of it. It's something that I can't fully follow anymore because of the fact that there has to be some sort of base in something. Okada and Omega 1 has largely been considered one of the best wrestling matches ever. And I have said no, just because of the fact, again, how much time they had spent outside of the ring when they weren't supposed to be having that much time outside of the ring. Throws it off for me. Not saying it's a bad match, just saying why I don't believe it is the best wrestling match is because it did not perform in the confines of the rules that it had. But Okada, amazing performer in New Japan Wrestling. So is Kenny Omega. Definitely not taken away from that. But if I had to find a guy in New Japan, and not even if, it's just that when I was brought over to watch New Japan, so many people were talking about Okada. So many people were talking about Shinsuke Nakamura and things like that. And I'm sitting there and I felt like Tetsuya Naito, it was, even though he was given the runs in the upper echelon of it, he was there Mr. Perfect, right? Just so fucking good in the ring, but better than Mr. Perfect because he had much more, like Nick said, when for The Rock, there was the charisma, a factor in it. Watching Naito just slide in there and lay on his, it's stuff that he did in the ring that I agree brings you into the match more, but I also felt he wrestled better within the confines of the structure of the match better than anybody else in New Japan. Did he have the charisma factor that the other guys had? No, not as high.
I think he does have that charisma though. One thing that
that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he doesn't have the charisma. I'm saying the other guys have their charisma touted more. Okada with the Rainmaker. Shinsuke Nakamura with his entrances. These are things that bring people into characters more. Like we're saying, no one's saying that The Rock is like this ultimate pendulum star to pay attention to as to in ring work, but The Rock wasn't top of WWF, WWE because of his in ring work. It was his mic skills. It was the things that brought people into it. And I'm saying that as good as charismatic as Naito was, New Japan's a completely different company because they also base it off of everything. And the fact of the matter is that some people were a little bit more charismatic than Naito, may not have been more in ring work wise, but the ultimate thing in wrestling is if you're over with the fans more, any company is going to give it to you more, period. Simple as that. And Naito, I feel, was the Kurt Hennig of it just because of the fact that I think
agree with you on that.
Yeah, he is the best in-ring worker, in my personal opinion, in New Japan. Definitely top 10 in the world. And I honestly think that if for some reason he decided to come to WWE because of that, I think that he could translate to the WWE style. I think that he is an overall well-rounded performer that there's no reason he shouldn't be thought of in somebody else's top 10 list overall workers.
I agree with you on that your assessment, like on the Kurt Hennig thing, it kind of like being a timing thing. Like, Kurt Hennig was there, with the Ultimate Warriors, with the Macho Mans, with the Hulk Hogan. So it's like these mega stars and like Jericho, who's like right there with those guys, but he's there at a time with Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. It's like, and same thing with Naito with these mega stars. He's there at a time when guys like, Tanahashi and Okada and Omega, are just mega fucking stars. Not to say that Naito's not at that level too, because he is, and they finally, they recognized that before this COVID thing by putting the two belts on him. Another real quick thing I want to say, which he deserves, by the way, that's awesome they did that. Another thing I want to say about Naito too, going back to his charisma, ever since the first time I've seen Naito, the first thing I said about Naito is despite his demeanor and his mannerisms and the way he carries himself in the ring and on his way to the ring and things like that, is like, I can't understand a word of what Naito's saying, but I understand exactly what he's thinking and the message he's trying to convey. And Like, you don't have to understand what he's saying. You could just see it by the way he carries himself. You know exactly what he's thinking. He's excellent at letting the viewer know what his motives are, what he's thinking in that ring at all times, without verbally communicating.
Exactly. I also have a guy in my 5, 6, and 7, my middle rungs, that is much higher on everyone else's list. HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. I have him at number 6, not even in the top 5. And that's huge that I don't have him there because, no spoilers, he's definitely in everyone else's top 5. As a matter of fact, he's in everyone else's the same spot except for me. So there's your little we'll get into that. As going, me, I love Shawn Michaels, but as good as he is, whatever he's doing, anybody who's above him on my list, I think did it better. I think Shawn Michaels, when I say AJ Styles is the Shawn Michaels of now, I agree with that. I'm not arguing. When people say it, I agree with that. But that's again why AJ Styles is in my honorable mentions and not in my top 10, because Shawn Michaels was taking things from other people, and he's like this meld of it all. And it's great and it's wonderful to watch. But again, the people I have above him are. When I'm looking at it, and and again, I'm going to tell you this right now, my top 6 is the most nitpicky. I can flip-flop things left and right. HBK, depending on the day, could be above number 5. But number 5, who I've obviously is Ricky Steamboat. He's had such amazing matches across the world with Ric Flair, some of the top matches considered in our wrestling industry. Ricky Steamboat's a part of. It's considered one of the best WrestleMania matches for a long time, until Taker and HBK, was Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat, and again, HBK has had a lot of other wrestling matches, including ones against Bret Hart where he won his title. WrestleMania 10, where he went up against Razor Ramon in the first highly publicized ladder match. Definitely not the first ladder match. But these are all great moments, but it took his entire career and facing one of the most iconic gimmicks and a streak behind it with a serious story involved for the emotion to come out to where someone finally thought that a WrestleMania, at least it became a wider opinion that a WrestleMania match was better than WrestleMania 3's Ricky Steamboat, Macho Man, Randy Savage. Hence why Steamboat's 5, Michaels is 6. And it's, again, tomorrow, this is one of the ones, I was talking about how things flip-flopped in the last 3 weeks. Michaels was higher 3 weeks ago. Michaels was in my top 5 3 weeks ago. Now he's not. And again, these like Zia stated, when talking about Knicks or talking about anything else, this is everyone's personal opinion, and it can fluctuate a lot. This one I think is more polarizing than any of them, because while I'm not giving away where Michaels is in everyone else's list, he is in the exact same spot for everyone else's list, and it's much higher than mine. So that being said, I think HBK is the most placement in mine is definitely the most polarizing in my list. And again, Ricky Steamboat, him and Ric Flair go around the world. One of the highest, most widely considered best matches is Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, Clash of Champions. I want to say 88. I could be wrong. Let's not nitpick that, because Jesus Christ.
I think it's Clash 89.
89. Okay. Highly touted as the best wrestling match of all time, and again, so many different types of opinions on this, but Ricky Steamboat, I feel, man, with as many top 10 matches as this dude is involved in, there's no way you can have him outside of a top 5 in as far as in-ring workers. Let's move on to Nick's number 5, 6, and 7. Nick has at number 7 Stone Cold Steve Austin. At his number 5 is a guy that was on a lot of
number 6.
Yeah, his number 6 is the guy that he has on his list that was in some honorable mentions, and I'm not on anyone else's list. Macho Man Randy Savage, and then at number 5, just like Joe, he has Bret Hart. So talk why you think Randy Savage deserved the top 10 spot. Hell, top 5 spot. No, I'm sorry, he's number 6, and then of course top 5 Bret Hart and Steve Austin.
Well, for Randy Savage, growing up, I started watching wrestling probably SummerSlam 89, SummerSlam 90 is the one where Earthquake and Hulk Hogan had a match. And that's really when I started watching wrestling. And then, I took a pretty extensive break in the late 90s, early 2000s. But Randy Savage, for me, again, another one of those guys that not only could work in the ring, but he captivated the audience. And I think that's something that, you have to have that ability to draw in the crowd and have them believe in what you're doing. And I think he did that. I think especially like with his elbow off the top rope, while it's not the most devastating move in wrestling, the way that he did that move as his finisher and the way he made it look and the flair and the, no pun intended, and just that jump off the top rope really made you feel like it was devastating. So I think for me, that's why he was up there at number 6. Stone Cold, while again, this is another one of those things where his showmanship combined with not the best in-ring work, but the two, added together really made for a really good performer. And, you believe that he was beating the fuck out of these people, didn't matter the size. He gave, he gave the whole, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog mentality to a lot of people. And, it didn't matter, so he just, I think for me, that worked his way into the top 10. And then Bret Hart, for me, one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. He was the excellence of execution for a reason. He could, he had a really good submission set. He was really good at striking. He was really fast in the ring. He made other guys look really really good. And I just think that put him into the top 5 for me.
All right. Anybody have anything to say about Nick's 5, 6, and 7, or agreements, disagreements? No? All right, cool. Smitty, you're next with your 5, 6, and 7. At number 7, you have Chris Jericho. Number 6, you have Ricky Steamboat. And at number 5, you have Chris Benoit. Talk a little bit about Jericho. This is the highest Jericho is on anyone's list. And then, of course, there's Ricky Steamboat and Chris Benoit. So why do you feel Jericho deserves the number 7? You were talking a little bit earlier about when he was on Joe's list at number 10. Tell me why you feel he's a number 7, and of course talk about Ricky Steamboat and Chris Benoit.
So Jericho made my number 7 because I wanted him. He had to crack the top 10 for me. Part of it is his body of work, and it is still developing at this point, especially at the age he's at as well. Not only has his character evolved, but his ring style has evolved and adapted to everything that he's been going through, with him getting older and stuff like that. He's also put on great matches everywhere he's been. Even in AEW, he's putting on decent matches with younger guys. And he's also given as a performer, he's given a rub to some of these younger guys. Like, look at the guys in the inner circle, like Pride and Powerful and Sammy Guevara.
But that's not his in-ring work, though. It doesn't matter what he's doing outside of the ring.
Work. His in-ring work, even there, like his match with Cody at Full Gear. The match he had with Hangman Page at All Out, and so he's still putting on really good matches with AEW. his runs in WWE have been his multiple runs in WWE. He's always had something memorable. You can talk about his run in WCW. When he was they owned De Corazon in Mexico. When he was in Japan, there's always something that people could talk about when it comes to Chris Jericho, no matter where he is in ring.
All right.
And
then Ricky Steamboat and Chris Benoit.
Yeah, Ricky Steamboat just has a body of work. Even the stuff that still amazes me to this day when I go back and watch it. Like you said, WrestleMania 3 is considered one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. And then some of his stuff, even with Clash of Champions, I forgot which Clash of Champions it was where he actually went against stunning Steve Austin. And that was one of those things that kind of put Austin on the map for me because that match was really good. His matches he had a good series of matches with Rick Rude in WCW. Like you said, his series of matches with Ric Flair throughout 80s and the 80s. It's like his body of the body of work that Ricky Steamboat does. And Ricky Steamboat was never really the biggest guy of his time, but he's always put on amazing matches with whoever he was in the ring with. And last person was Chris Benoit. Because Chris Benoit was one of those he was, my love of Chris Benoit started back in when he was with ECW as the Pegasus Kid. And he had a great series of matches with a guy named Lionheart. And
who's that?
Weren't those matches in New Japan though, Smitty?
Oh yeah, they were in New Japan, but they also made the way to ECW in 94, 93, 94 or something, 94, 95 or something like that.
Yeah, but in ECW they were wrestling as themselves, not
Nope, Jericho's still Lionheart.
Yeah, Jericho's Lionheart in ECW.
He was Lionheart Chris Jericho. He wasn't like Corleone de Leon or whatever he was. And Benoit
Leon de Corazon.
Yeah, whatever. And Benoit wasn't Pegasus Kid in ECW.
Yeah, but when I first saw them, they were performing in ECW, just like when I first saw Malenko and Guerrero. But and some of the series of matches that they had there, that's where I was like, I liked the Benoit character. I liked the Benoit character. Then everything he did in WCW was really good. And his WWE run just was probably him just hitting his feet. And he was a great technician. When he laid in strikes, it looked like they fucking hurt. And Benoit always entertained me. And he's had one of my favorite submissions of all time. So that was made kind of subjective where he got there with the crippler crossface.
Okay. All right. Up next, Z. Your 7, 8, and 9. Your number 7 is someone that no one else has on their list. Randy Orton. Number 6, you have Chris Benoit. And at number 5, you have Kurt Angle. So please start off with Randy Orton, which I'm going to let me say something first. I'm not going to argue this. I think Randy Orton is one of the smoothest technical workers inside of the ring right now. So I can't even argue why you even have him on a top 10. But go ahead and tell me why you feel he deserves to be in the top
10. For that exact reason. Randy Orton, in my career of watching wrestling, which goes back about 33 years, he's one of everything he does in the ring is absolutely perfect. Even when he botches, he makes the right adjustment to make it be like, you're like, wait a minute, was that really a botch or was it, planned or whatever? He's just that good. And just that one of my favorite Randy Orton moves is not the RKO. It's the fucking running fucking spinning power slam he does, and how crisp it looks every time. Even so, other people steal it. Cody took it and he openly admits to it. He's like, Randy does it, so I do it. He's just so good in the ring. I don't know. I'm just a huge Orton mark, so he's making my list. Is basically what
understandable. Yeah.
What was above him on my list?
Chris Benoit on number. Yeah, Chris Benoit at number 6, and your top 5 starts with Kurt Angle. Chris Benoit this is the lowest Chris Benoit is on anyone's list if he's on a list. But you're also one of these huge Chris Benoit marks. So explain why you have him at number 6 and then going Kurt Angle at number 5.
He was at number 3 to begin with. Just to throw that out there. He's Chris Benoit. He's one of the best technical workers, and he gets the bump above everybody else because I am a huge Benoit mark. But I mean, he's on everybody else's list somewhere. So
nope.
I mean, not. Oh yeah. Well, Joe was afraid to put him on the list because he thought he was going to get in trouble. No,
get in trouble for everything now.
I know, but I don't care. It's Chris Benoit. He's one of the best to ever do it. Everybody recognizes it. You know where he would be if he didn't kill his fucking family. So I mean, I don't know. He was one of the best technical workers in the business ever, and I really enjoy like a technical wrestling match. That's why there's a lot of technicians on my list, except for Danny Bryan because he's a talentless bum.
And Kurt Angle starts your top 5.
Oh, Kurt Angle! Kurt Angle should be my favorite wrestler because Kurt Angle is the only person on both of my lists. He did it so quickly.
No, he's not.
He's not on my mic list.
No, he's on your mic list. He's not the only person on both lists.
Oh, cool. Then maybe he should be my.
There's only one other. There's only one other.
Fucker. Probably. I don't know. I'll think about it. But anyways, Angle's just so good, and he did it so quickly. And he's got when it comes to in ring, he can be a technician. He can hang with a high flyer. He's got the charisma to, make the crowd buy into it. And he can be both face or heel. And that includes, like, the style of wrestling he does in the ring and the shit he does in the ring. Like, he has different movesets and shit for when he's a heel and a face and, like, different ways he pumps up the crowd. Like, almost like his own cheerleader. But he just got the natural charisma, and he's just such a natural. He just took to the business. So he should be in everybody's top 5, in my opinion.
Right.
And I know where he is on your list.
I have many times touted where I believe Kurt Angle deserves to be. And again, because we're in a snake formation Z, you're still going to be talking. We're going to talk about 2, 3, and 4. Number 4 is a guy that you have that no one else has on their list in Rey Mysterio. Number 3, you have Ric Flair. And at number 2, you have Bret Hart. So start with Rey Mysterio, why you feel not only is he deserved to be in a top 10, but in your top 5. And then, of course, talk about Ric Flair and Bret Hart.
because he's the GLOAT, the best luchador of all time.
The bloat? The bloat?
the GLOAT. Whatever he puts on his...
Right, but you said bloat. But you said best luchador. That would make him bloat.
Oh, great!
I thought it was the best mask of all time.
And yeah, it's the greatest mask of all time. Gamote.
Whatever you want to call it. I mean, he's been everywhere. He does a lot of innovative shit in the ring. Like, he invented a style that guys run with today, and he's still adapting to it. He still does stuff in the ring that I have never seen before. When he came back, and now, mind you, like, I don't watch anything out of, like, American pro wrestling that's on TV. I have watched a few New Japan, but so there's a lot of shit Ray does that I've never seen before. Like, when he came back and started doing that thing where he does, like, the baseball slide into the splash, that shit looked fluid as fuck. Like,
I was just going to mention that. That slide, he always brings something new with him, something back with him when he makes a return. Always.
Right. So, like, and he's never had a bad match. I mean, yeah, he did kill somebody, but whatever.
He came back this time with a Canadian fucking destroyer.
Okay, exactly my point of why he's on my list. Like, thank you guys for making the point of why he's on my list.
And of course, then Ric Flair at number 3 and Bret Hart at number 2.
Ric Flair back in the old days, when I go back and watch old Ric Flair matches, he is just such a good storyteller in the ring. And still to this day, still in an old age, like, yeah, sure, he can't wrestle, but he knows how to use psychology during a match to get the crowd even more invested to love or hate somebody, depending on, what he's trying to do. Like if he's got to take a bump, like he just knows. He's just very, very good. I mean, and he's the greatest wrestler of all time. Yeah, on a lot of people's lists, but I don't know. It just seemed like a very deserving spot. So
All right, and Bret Hart at number 2.
Sorry, should have muted for that. Bret Hart.
Involuntary.
Bret Hart. When I was growing up, Bret Hart was the best technician. So that's where my head's at. Like Bret has always been there, and then everybody else that's been a technician in the ring is just copying off of Bret Hart. So that's why Bret is
number 2. All right, Smitty. We're gonna go into your 2, 3, and 4. Your number 4 is Eddie Guerrero. Your number 3 is Kurt Angle, and your number 2, just like Z, is Bret Hart.
I went with Guerrero at number 4 because Guerrero's adaptability, and he was also one of those guys that no matter where he went, he's shown no matter where he went. Say he's shown out in Mexico when he was with Art Bar. He's shown when he was at ECW. He's shown when he was in WCW and a cruiserweight. He was one of those guys that made you want to watch cruiserweights.
Wait, what are you? He what?
H-O-N-E.
You mean shined?
Shine, whatever.
Okay. I was like, that's not a word, bro.
What the fuck was that?
Shone.
Past tense shine, baby.
No.
Shown up.
Oh no. All right, guys. He shined.
You say he got a chance. He shined at the mid card and at the top of the card in WWF, and his body of work was just amazing. And he was also one of those guys that adapted to almost anybody he worked with, whether it was somebody he worked with a million times or some people he probably had a one-off with. Like, I thought the match at No Way Out, outside of the whole when he won his WWE championship, outside of the whole Goldberg interference thing, it was a pretty solid, decent match going into it. And that rest Eddie Soul. We still talk about his body of work to this day because it was just that good.
Kurt Angle at 3, Bret Hart at 2.
Kurt Angle's a fucking machine. That's that's the best way to put it. I just feel like the best part of his in-ring work, a lot of people didn't get the chance to see because it wasn't TNA. A lot of people talk about his the end of his WWE run, but his best work was in TNA when he had like excellent match. When he came in and had a set of killer matches with Samoa Joe. He had a bunch of killer matches with AJ Styles when he was there. Even his work,
triple threat
matches with,
the triple threat with both of those guys.
Yes, and also he had some pretty decent matches with Jeff Jarrett when he was there. Say his matches with Sting, and at that point, people kind of thought Sting may have been washed up at that point, but those who put on some killer matches out in TNA. And he also had some great character work while he was in TNA with the whole main event mafia thing. And
that was back in the day when TNA was doing some really good stuff too, and I was completely tuned out of WWF or whatever just because I wasn't liking their product at the time. And like guys like AJ and Joe and Kurt and Daniels, they were killing
it back then,
house down, dude. Just killer matches, dude.
And there was a whole thing with the main event Mafia where Kurt Angle was a world champion of TNA, and he was just putting on matches like 4 or 5-star matches with the X Division guys. So he like put on good matches with guys like Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and it was like there was not a match there was a time where I would literally I couldn't miss TNA if I knew Kurt Angle was on the card.
Me too. Back in those days, I was like diehard TNA guy and not tuned into WWE at all.
All right, and then you have Bret Hart at number 2, Smitty. Trying to keep this moving quicker. We only have about a half hour left of the show. We have a whole other top 10 to hit.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Z. Like, well, growing up, when it came to technicians, Bret was the guy, and even now, like Bret Hart is the technician I kind of hold the standard to, and his body of work, unlike Owen, where I feel like Owen's career was cut short, and he never reached his full potential. Bret's body of work kind of speaks for itself. Fuck Goldberg for kicking him in the head.
All right. Next, Nick, we're going to talk about your 4, 3, and 2. At number 4, you have Chris Benoit. At number 3, you have Owen Hart. And at number 2, you have Ric Flair.
Chris Benoit, obviously, for all the reasons everybody said. I mean, the dude just, to me, was a machine. I mean, there was really never a time when that guy not only made himself look good, but made his opponents look good. His submission style, he was a fucking beast. His anything off the ropes, I mean, he just made everything look fluid. I will say as a human, take the words from Paul Heyman, fuck him. But, as a professional in the business, second to none. I mean, he was just phenomenal.
Except
Owen Hart.
Ric Flair.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
Just give me shit. I have to give everyone shit. It's not just Smitty I give shit to.
Owen Hart, this was tough. I initially did have Bret Hart ahead of him, but I think it was Z that said it earlier that had Owen Hart gotten into the business before Bret, he would have done, in my opinion, everything that Bret did and then some. And I think that mixed with the potential that he had with that time period when guys were coming in like Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, and they didn't have that opportunity, though they could have put on some of the best matches that we had ever seen, and we would be talking about those matches as opposed to the other matches that you guys had all mentioned. His time with Coco Beware and High Energy and transitioning into a singles wrestler, that match at WrestleMania 10 is one of my top 5 matches of all time, him and Bret. So I just think that, and I'm kind of biased right now because of the Dark Side of the Ring thing, so that may have pushed him into, that third spot, just saying. But and then number 2, Ric Flair. I mean, it's another one of those things where his in-ring ability mixed with his way to captivate the audience and get them behind whatever he was doing, whether it was when he was a heel or doing something to make his opponent look good. One of his matches for me, and I didn't see a lot of his older matches like from the mid to early 80s and so on. But one of the matches that really stuck out for me was with him and Randy Savage. I think it was WrestleMania 8. The way he sells moves and covered in blood and his stumbling and face planting into the mat, just all of those things turned him to me into that number 2 spot as a well-rounded in-ring worker that from his wrestling style to captivating the audience just made him, one of the best in-ring performers.
All right. For me, 4, 3, and 2, I have Ric Flair at number 4. I have Chris Benoit at number 3, and I have Eddie Guerrero at number 2. Eddie Guerrero has been floating right around the mid to top range of this for a while. I think Chris Benoit is one of the best technical people of all time. I think he's one of I think before how Randy Orton is doing it right now, where just about every move he does is sheer perfection. It was the same thing with Chris Benoit. You know, we saw his work rate and things like that and why it was where it was in some of the dark side of the ring conversation about how Jericho even said like he feigned a kick that wasn't even on TV and went and did squats in the background just because he was like so upset at that. And so you can tell that's why Chris Benoit, you know, a couple of the things may have gone off the fucking deep end, but at the same time, why his work rate was so good in the ring. Ric Flair, there's nothing else that needs to be said about Ric Flair. We've all said it. Eddie Guerrero at number 2, though. I put Guerrero at number 2 because while he was amazing technically, he was wonderful high flying. He was, in my opinion, one of the most innovative people in the ring for not wrestling moves, but wrestling finishes. Because let's be honest, the lie, cheat, and steal gimmick gave him things, and he did things that people weren't even think about. You know, hitting the chair on the mat, tossing it to his opponent, and then falling. And then the ref calling a DQ for Eddie to win because they thought the guy hit him with the chair. The WrestleMania match against Kurt Angle when he undid his boot and Kurt went for the ankle lock and Eddie slipped out because of the boot and then caught him in a roll-up to get the win. Just Eddie Guerrero, I feel it deserves to be in a top 3 spot for in-ring work just for that. And again, that's WWE style. That's not even talking about how great he was everywhere else. ECW, WCW, things that have already been stated. But why he's at my number 2, basically for the innovative things he was doing towards the end of his WWE career and sadly, unfortunately, towards the end of his life. It was just so captivating, so good. I can only imagine what would have come next had he continued living and providing us all of these wrestling memories. All right, Joe, you're 4, 3, and 2. Your number 3 is somebody that nobody has in their list. Your number 4, Eddie Guerrero, like I just said. Number 3 is Rob Van Dam, RVD. And number 2, you have AJ Styles. Talk a little bit why RVD is in your top 10, let alone your top 3, and then go a little bit into why you have AJ Styles so high and a little, you know, Eddie Guerrero. Obviously, try to keep it quick.
All right, let's go start from the bottom. Eddie Guerrero, I mean, most of all been said about him that can be said. I can add a little bit to that, though. It's a guy that had great matches with pretty much everybody across the get, like everybody from Rey Mysterio to Brock Lesnar, literally. Great matches and different styles of matches, you know, high-flying matches with Rey Mysterio, technical matches with Malenko, hard-hitting stuff with Benoit, you know, brutal, bloody, just wars with like a JBL, street fights with John Cena. He could do it all, everything, and just so smooth, no holes in his game whatsoever. Just an incredible athlete in the ring. RVD, I can't believe he's not on anyone's list, to be honest with you. There's so many moves that people do now that are straight up stolen from him. You know, like Naomi doing the split-legged moonsault, the Shane Terminator. RVD invented basically his entire move set. He was doing stuff that only he was doing back then, and now you see a lot of people doing it.
But that's part of his gimmick and impact now too.
Oh, it's not a gimmick; it's true. Yeah, I know he's doing the heel thing with that fucking hooker right now, but he did invent his moveset, and people do jock his style. When he was at the top, when he was TV champion in ECW, and like him and Sabu, and him and Balls Mahoney, and him and the Dudleys, and him and Jerry Lynn, nobody was having better fucking matches than Rob Van Dam. Nobody.
He and Jerry Lynn are one of my favorite feuds in wrestling history.
Oh, for sure, dude.
All right, and then AJ Styles.
AJ Styles. I know he's probably lower on a lot of people's list, or maybe not even there, because the bulk of his run was in TNA. But as I was talking about earlier, that TNA was fucking awesome when AJ was doing some great things over there. with I said Joe and Kurt and Daniels and all those guys, the X Division guys, everybody. And then he was able to adapt everywhere he went. TNA was a sinking ship, and he might have almost been done with his career, but he went over to New Japan and became a star again. Had a resurgence, changed his style up a little bit, and then what's he do? Like you mentioned earlier, Mikey, you don't think anybody's really a top guy until they can come do the WWE style. Well, he did that. And another testament to him being a good worker is wherever he goes, if he's on Raw or if he's on SmackDown, or guys want to get moved over to those shows so they can fucking work with him.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that he wasn't there to work with the Shawns and the Stone Cold, fuck that, because the top guys there now, including Undertaker, want to fucking work with him. And I guarantee you, if he was in WWE a bit earlier than when he came in, all the top guys back then would have wanted to work with him then too. So
for sure,
he's top. He's the number one right now. He's the best wrestler going right now.
All right. Number one across the board for everyone's list except mine is the same person, and that's HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Joe has him at number one. Nick has him at number one. Smitty has him at number one. And Z has him at number one. I do not. So, quickly, Joe, why do you have him at number one?
He's the showstopper. He's Mr. WrestleMania. He always has the best match on the card. He's had, in my opinion, the best match in WrestleMania history. Two of them, in my opinion. 25 against Undertaker and 21 against Kurt Angle. And then, of course, just the beautiful work of art of a retirement match with Ric Flair. His matches with Stone Cold, his matches with Brett, matches with Triple H. You can go on and on. I can go on for hours.
Okay.
Again, another guy whose resume speaks for itself, and just his rope to rope, his in-ring athleticism, his ability. He's flawless. He's almost perfect in the ring.
All right. Nick, why do you have HBK, Shawn Michaels at number one?
A lot of what Joe just said. I mean, there's not a match, even when he was with the Rockers, that wasn't a really good match that had you sitting on the edge of your seat the whole time. I mean, those matches he mentioned back in the day, like when he was in matches like with Rick Martel at SummerSlam, and there was a Survivor Series where him and Brett fought. I think it was for the Intercontinental title, and their matches going into WrestleMania. I mean, it just, from his ability, high-flying ability, his striking ability, submission ability, I mean, the dude is just an all-encompassing package of what it means to be an in-ring worker.
Smitty, why do you have him at number one?
They can pretty much nail it on the head, but some of the things that stand out to me is his runs as the Intercontinental Champion. His ladder match with Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10. Also, the follow-up ladder match at SummerSlam that they did as well. His match with Kurt Hennig, Davey Boy Smith. Joe, one of my favorite WrestleMania matches with him was the WrestleMania 19 match with Jericho. And the guy, wherever he is on the card, he made you want to watch.
All right, and Z, why is he the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, your number one?
For all the reasons currently stated and the fact that I'm biased.
Obviously, I'm the only one who does not have Shawn Michaels at number one, and a lot of people already know who my number one is as far as in-ring work, and that's Kurt Angle. I have Kurt Angle right there for the simple fact, a lot of what everything was saying, mainly what Joe and Smitty were talking about, is Kurt Angle's main part of his career. A lot of people think WWE, but he got even better once he hit TNA. He was putting on his best work 5-star Dave Meltzer, before he went on a tangent of ratings, was giving Kurt Angle these matches in TNA. Kurt Angle was the reason TNA was something to be watched at certain parts of in certain parts of its history outside of other things. But Kurt Angle could go with anyone. Like a lot of people said, his match with Shawn Michaels, highly touted. Again, one of the better WrestleMania matches. Hell, him and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, even though Brock Lesnar fucking messed that fucking shooting star press up and almost killed him. Another high quality match. Kurt Angle is someone, to me, did everything that Eddie did. Kurt did just a little bit better. As far as high-flying moves and things like that. Same with Chris Benoit. Boom, you see Kurt Angle, and he evolved his shit. Kurt Angle had that ankle lock for the longest time, and then eventually started going into cinch it when he dropped to the mat and doing it so people couldn't constantly flip out of it, because there became he's standing up hitting his ankle lock, so people would flip and throw Kurt Angle over. Well, then he started cinching it in by wrapping his legs around the leg as well, so you couldn't do that. You know, he didn't just his moves, he evolved them as well with his in-ring work. And again, similar to what Z was saying with William Regal, Kurt Angle was drugged the fuck up doing this shit. You know, imagine if he had a healthy neck. He didn't win the Olympics with a broken freaking neck. Just how much better he could have been because there weren't drugs in his system. Again, though, sometimes drugs make everything better. There was a pitcher that threw a no-hitter on LSD once. Okay, let's not pretend drugs have not made things.
You know, he might not have been able to perform at that level without those drugs. I mean, he was on a lot of pain pills and he was in a lot of pain. So if he was feeling all that pain, he wouldn't have been able to do that stuff.
It's very possible. It could go either way, but to me, I just think Kurt Angle is something that everyone should watch from all of his stuff. Like we gave him so much shit for coming back with the Shield, right? It was just so stiff. It wasn't really anything. But then he had his next match a month or two later, and all of us were like, holy shit. If that Kurt Angle is going to perform in matches, I want more Kurt Angle matches. Because even I, with that Shield one, was like, no, thank you. I don't need to see Kurt Angle wrestle anymore. Let's not destroy your legacy. And then he came back for one more match, and you were like, okay, I could see that Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is just the ultimate guy to me. I understand why everyone else has HBK at number one. I'm not knocking it in any way, shape, or form. But to me, it's Kurt Angle. You know, he is the one to pay attention to. Now, I will say this. That top 10 for the in-ring work went about 30 minutes longer than I was thinking it's going to. So I don't think we're going to get into the top 10 mic workers today. But because I don't want a show to have 3 hours. We don't need a 3-hour show. We could definitely go into this on another show next week while having our picks for NXT takeovers in your house as well. I do, though, want to get into the honorable mentions for mic work. Z, you're going to be first for this because obviously we're going in the snake division. So give me 3 people that you have honorable mentions for your mic work that did not make your top 10 but definitely deserve to be talked
about. Enzo Amore, for starters, was probably a garbage human being. I don't really know. I've never met the guy. But it was great on the mic. Absolutely fucking fantastic. He would just go out there and talk, and the people loved it, and I was one of those people. So I don't know where he would actually land on if I made an actual, extended all-time list, but it definitely needs to be talked about because he was probably the best talker of this generation, maybe not, but definitely in the conversation.
He's definitely a walking catchphrase.
Yeah. Also in there, Rick Rude. Rick Rude's mic skills were fantastic, whether they were completely scripted and he said the same thing. He could also carry a conversation when, as a heel or a face. So I just feel he has to be there. And I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of a different one, and I didn't really do honorable mentions for mic work because there's so many people to pick from.
All right. Smitty, your honorable mentions for Mike Work.
So I picked this. This one was hard for me too because the 3 honorable mentions I had Superstar Billy Graham because Superstar Billy Graham kind of laid down pretty much almost the entire platform for cutting promos in the '80s, and in the number 2 that goes into my second honorable mention of Hulk Hogan because you remember Hulk Hogan promo when you hear Hulk Hogan promo.
Let me tell you something, brother.
Yeah. Even despite the fact that we know he used another word when he said brother, he meant to say something else.
He was just cutting a promo.
But and the third person I have on my honorable mention is Bray Wyatt.
Okay.
Bray Wyatt's always been able to cut a decent promo. Sometimes it may seem like he's rambling, but he kept you captivated whenever he's on the mic.
All right. Nick, 3 people that you believe deserved honorable mentions for their mic work, but for some reason did not make your top
10. Excuse me. I've got Triple H. Oh man. Triple H.
Nick's shitting his pants over there.
Yeah, man. Fuck.
Grandma spaghetti.
Yeah. All over.
It's mom's spaghetti.
Triple H is I think he's just great on the mic. He's very articulate. He's got a really good way with words that really, captivates you and makes you believe that, I don't ever feel like what he's saying is scripted. He's got that power on the mic. Ted DiBiase, I think as the $1 Million Man, just, he made you, at least made me, pissed off because he was such a fucking snotty millionaire in essence, and he really made you believe that he was that character, that arrogant fucking rich asshole. And then the Ultimate Warrior, I think too, he almost made my top 10. A lot of what the Ultimate Warrior, I remember back in the day, they'd be in front of like a green screen with the Warrior image behind him, and he's just fucking rambling. But what he was rambling, it didn't fucking matter. Like, I hung on every word he said, even though a lot of times it didn't make any fucking sense at all. But he had you believe that he was this fucking ultra human being that just was, ready to fucking kill whatever came into his path. And it really didn't matter what he said, but that's what was great about
it. All right. For me, go ahead, Z.
I remember what my third honorable mention was. CM Punk.
Okay.
Moving on.
He's in one of my honorable mentions, so I'll definitely go into a little bit more with about CM Punk. My honorable mentions: Samoa Joe. I think Samoa Joe, his mic work. Like, if there's anyone who can talk and just make you want to hate him at the same time make you love him, I think Samoa Joe is definitely up there. There's a reason he's doing commentary right now. It's because of how well he speaks and his words come across when he's talking about whatever he's talking about. His stuff in NXT, his stuff in TNA, his stuff in Ring of Honor. Samoa Joe is a really fucking good on that stick. Next for me, CM Punk. I have highly talked about how I feel CM Punk is one of the more overrated people. I think he hit a spot in a specific time frame that sent him over the moon. But at the same time, I think that he's great. I don't think he is what a lot of people believe he is, as in the best in the world when he said it and they started to believe it. I get it. Doesn't suck, obviously. I don't think he was even in an honorable mention for our in-ring workers, though he does have one of the best matches in WWE history when he took on John Cena at Money in the Bank for the WWE Championship. But again, there was also so much emotion built in that match for how it went and to where he left out of the crowd with the belt. 5-star match from Meltzer for Money in the Bank 2011 against John Cena. Did I say 2011? It wasn't 2011. It was something else. Was it? Anyway, fuck it. Who cares? But again, as far as the mic work as well, I think he's good. I think he talked really well. I just think there's a bunch of other people above him, including who I have at my number 11 that I just couldn't find a way to put in my top 10. And it's the first woman I think is being mentioned on any of these lists, Alexa Bliss. I think the way Alexa Bliss works the microphone, the way she has went with the crowd, how she has changed a what chant to go for her, which is not something many wrestlers have been able to do. I think Alexa Bliss, while she's also a part of one of the worst fucking segments in promo history, I don't think that's totally on her. I think that's a lot more on the writing with it. There's some things you just can't make better, like a Bayley, This Is Your Life. Hell, the New Day couldn't make Old Day better, and they were playing with Gallows and Anderson on that one, who, when Gallows and Anderson are talking when they want to talk the right way, Gallows and Anderson are amazing. Look at their social media stuff now since they've been let go of WWE. Hilarious. Great mic work, but obviously not in that style. But I think Alexa Bliss definitely deserves to be mentioned as one of the top mic performers in wrestling today and past.
I think
Joe,
she also has one of the worst. I think Alexa Bliss has one of the worst talk show segments in WWE history. A Moment of Bliss. I think it's one of the worst talk show segments in WWE history.
Okay. Joe, your three of your honorable mentions.
I got Daniel Bryan actually for one of mine. What
Stop
he did with
your dogs. John Wick is gonna fuck you up.
The dog is killing a toy.
Oh, okay. That's fine though.
What he did with on his rise to the top, winning the title at WrestleMania, with the match against the first match tonight, Triple H, and then Batista and Orton at the end of the night, and the road led to that with the Yes movement and getting everybody in the ring and everything. Getting Vince to forcing Vince's hand to book him correctly and getting the WWE universe behind him was not just based on what he did in the ring. He talked his way into that spot too. So I think he should definitely be mentioned there. I also have the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, as an honorable mention. Just that cackle, his voice. Yeah, when he talked, you believe him. That's what I like in a promo is when someone talks, I want to be able to believe what they're saying. And like you were saying with Samoa Joe earlier, you can believe what he's saying. Well, I got John Cena as an honorable mention. He's just got he could have even made the top 10, let's be honest. But I have other people in there.
Fair.
with his raps and all of his promos throughout the history of his career, I mean, his mic work speaks for itself. You don't need to go into that very much. So that's my three.
All right. So next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into more of our top 10 for the people on the mic. We're also going to be having our predictions. I believe it is next week, right? NXT TakeOver in your house is next Sunday. So we're going to have our predictions for that to see who takes the belt off of Smitty because he really doesn't fucking deserve it. It's why he still doesn't have it. It's just a picture in his background. I'll never have it. COVID. Sorry. Screw Smitty out of everything. But again, make sure you're tuning in next week. We will go over our NXT TakeOver in your house predictions and give our top 10 mic workers in wrestling history. Another list that, again, like I said, while this one had quite a few people across the board that were not on it, like Z said, the mic workers is one you could just rattle off people who should be around everyone's top 10. And there's only 4-5 people that aren't on other people's lists on here. And one of them has already been talked about as an honorable mention for a couple people. So make sure you tune in next week, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday for our top 10 mic workers and our predictions for NXT TakeOver in your house. Make sure you go to breakingdownthering.com. You can get a shirt. You can look at all of it. You can see Smitty's stupid face looking homeless with the Ring Crew Championship. And you can also check out Zebros is where we got our Ring Crew Championship. Beautifully made title. We are your Ring Crew.
The champ, Smitty.
Just a plain white Z.
Full up and Joe.
Koenig 19.
And me, the almighty one, Mikey himself. Again, thank you so much for listening, so much for watching, and we are out.